What's up, friends? Nav here with another video for you today, and I'm going to be starting the ELEAGUE Major prediction video that I've been wanting to do for a while. The Major is coming up this weekend. It is the 22nd to the 29th for the next CSGO Major, and so this is going to start a series of videos that I want to do on this channel. This particular video is going to be a day one prediction, but throughout the Major, as time goes on, as more matches are played, I want to do more predictions and more result based videos talking about the results, what was surprising, what wasn't, stuff like that. So this video is all about day one and the predictions going into the Major for day one specifically. So we have all of the matches here for day one listed in chronological order. We have a fancy little, that's not, where's Excel? There it is. We have a fancy little Excel spreadsheet here. We're going to write winners, losers, stuff like that. So let's get right into it. Gambit versus North is going to be the first match of the day. This is kind of a weird matchup. Gambit is, of course, part of the old Hellraisers, and North is ex Dignitas. This being their first tournament of being under the North name. So if we look into Gambit a little bit here. We're going to see that it's made up of Adren, Zeus, Doja, Mao, and Hobbit. Of course, Adren and Doja were a part of Hellraisers for a long time. Zeus was with Na'Vi before he was kicked from there. And so that's the lineup of players. It's kind of a weird mesh of players. But as you can see, they performed well in some of their events. Pred Masters 3, for instance, they got first. They beat out Kingwin, Rogue, Fnatic Academy. So it wasn't the most highest competition that you could possibly get there. If we take a look at DreamHack Open, Renegades, Kingwin, Godsent, Cloud9, Flipside, Dignitas, Optic. So again, not the best of the best. You did have some big names in there, Dignitas, which of course they're playing in the first matchup now as North. Cloud9, who didn't qualify for the Major. Flipside, who's in the Major. Optic, which is in the Major. Godsent in the Major. So there were some good teams at this event. So it's not to say that Gambit isn't a solid team that qualified for the Major. Every team that's in the Major is a solid team. You can't deny that. If we take a look at North, they are ex Dignitas. So if we look here, we'll see their player list real quick. Rubino, Cajun B, MSL, Magisboy. Config, of course, Cajun B came over from Astralis a while ago. They've been playing with Cajun B for a while, and they've had some good results as Dignitas. Because like I said, they're going to be the first tournament under the North tag. So if we look at Dignitas' former results, third at ELEAGUE Major qualifier, first Epicenter, first League of Sharks, first WESG, and third at DreamHack. Now, if we look, all of these, and I looked through these already, all of these are really high-quality tournaments. This was the Major qualifier, so all of these teams are in the Majors. Envious, Hellraisers, G2, Dig, obviously, Optic, Mouse, Godsent, and FaZe, all in the Majors. First at Epicenter, which had a lot of star-studded teams, Virtus.pro, Na'Vi, SK, Fnatic, G2, NiP, Hellraisers, all of those are solid teams. And the fact that they've been able to perform this well at these tournaments, it lends me to believe that Dignitas, now North, is going to win this matchup. I just think that they're a more solid team, more well-rounded. Now, there's something to keep in mind for all of these majors. It's a best of one. All matches are a best of one in the first day. And so how this is going to work is all these teams are going to play, and then there's going to be 8 teams that are 0-1, 8 teams that are 1-0. The 1-0 teams are going to play each other, 0-1 teams, and it's just going to sort of branch out like that. So these are all best of ones. So anyone could win at any time. Best of ones are very, very hit or miss. So don't be surprised if there are some upsets here as we go throughout. But I think for this one, we have to pick North to be the winners, and the losers then, of course, is Gambit. Now I want to center that because that's going to bother me if it's not. Okay, great. All right, moving on. Fnatic and G2 is the next slot here. Everyone knows Fnatic, right? Fnatic was this star-studded team. They were basically gods at the game for the longest time. If we look, I think there was a span of time where they could not be stopped. I mean, they got first at 2 majors in a row. They got third at ESL One Cologne. These are just their major major events. But recently, quarterfinals at MLG Columbus, third at ESL Pro League, second at ELEAGUE Season 1, third. So they haven't really performed incredibly recently. I mean, granted, these are big name teams in these tournaments, but they've sort of stepped down. I think everyone can agree that as time has gone on, they've really dropped off. They were, without a doubt, they were the best team. I mean, they were the best team in the entire world. They've fallen off a little bit. That's not to say that they can't win, and that they won't win, that they aren't a major contender. I mean, I think they're a very solid contender to win the major. But I'm just saying right now, they're on a bit of a downside, and that's okay. It happens with every team. Right now, you could, and this is the thing about this major, is that I can't say for sure that there's a decisive #1 team in the world right now. I mean, I think that's hard to say who exactly is the clear favorite. In years past, it's always been Fnatic. It's always been SK. Now it's kind of like, okay, not really sure where we're going to go with this. So the fact that we don't have that, Fnatic could very easily win the major. Who knows? They're going up against G2. So if we look, and Olaf, Dennis, Twist, Crims, Disco, Delpan, that's who makes up Fnatic now. If we look up G2, we'll see that it's Shocks, RPK Smith, Scream, Body, the French team here. I think this matchup lends itself to Fnatic for a few reasons. The big reason here is that all the talk about the French shuffle and the French teams changing players and all the uncertainty that's been in the French scene right now, I think really lends itself to Fnatic. Now, that's not to say that the G2 won't come out and play with their hearts out. They won't come out and just absolutely smash them. But I think right now with the turmoil that's going on in the French scene, and with G2, who, if we're being honest, haven't really shown that consistency that you want, that consistency to win events, to win majors. I mean, if we look at their major history, they went out the group stages in ESL One Cologne 2016 group stage, MLG Columbus, third at DreamHack Open Cluj-Napoca. So they don't really have that winning experience at majors or in LANs in general. I mean, the second group stage, first, second. Now, I understand that's leaving out some of their placings, but it just doesn't seem like they'd be a lock to beat Fnatic. Now, this is a toss-up, right? I mean, all of these matchups essentially are, but I feel like this one more so because neither of these teams are really in their prime right now. They're not really on all strides. Now, leading into the major, all these teams want to practice. They want to practice as much as they can. So we might see different teams come out, and teams that, obviously it's going to be the same players, but the night and day difference between Fnatic, how they played before the major and how they played during the major, it could be there because of their practice. Same thing with G2. Same thing with all of these teams here in the major. But for this matchup, I'm going to take Fnatic in this match just because, G2, I don't know where their minds are at right now with all the turmoil that's going on. So we're taking Fnatic in this matchup. Loser is G2. Moving on, SK and Hellraisers. This is one matchup that I feel pretty confidently that we can take one team over the other, and that's going to be SK. If we look at SK, everyone knows who SK is, the Brazilian squad, Brazilian plus Fox, who is Portuguese, I think? Yeah, Portuguese. So it's Fox, who's the Portuguese guy, Fallen, Fur, Coldzera, Taco. It used to be Fallen, Fur, Coldzera, Taco, and FNX. They dropped FNX, swapped out for Fox. You could make an argument that hinders them, that's going to make them not as good. That's kind of hard to say, right? Because this team is so solid. Fallen is just one of the best in-game leaders, certainly at CSGO, maybe of all time. You think that's going to lend itself to SK. I mean, they've got that history. They've got the how do you want to say? They've got the consistency. They've got the experience. When you look at Hellraisers, Angel, Bondix, Stico, Zero, Dead Fox, certainly a solid team. Not pushovers, not silvers. They're in the major for a reason. You gotta wonder how well they're gonna perform, right? You gotta wonder, are they gonna be able to live up to the hype of being in the major? Are they gonna be able to hang with SK in this game? I don't think so. I think it's gonna be SK. I think this one is gonna be not one-sided, but I think this is one of the few games in day one that you can say with certainty the winner's probably going to be SK and the loser Hellraisers. So we're going to move on. Virtus Pro Optic. This is one of the... There's a couple matchups in day one that I don't have any clue, and this is one of them. Because you look at Optic Gaming, the new team... Let's just look at them because they've got the hype around them. The new team, the Green Wall. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm not an Optic fan because I've been an Optic fan since Call of Duty. So for me to sit here and say, oh, I'm not an Optic fan, that would just be lying to you. I'm an Optic fan. I'm going to be real honest with you. They comprised of Rush, Mixwell, Stan, Naf, and Tarek. Had a lot of great performances as of late. They started off shaky. When they first came into the scene, I mean, when Hex announced that he was picking up Optic, it was kind of just like, oh, he got this really scrimmy North American team. You know, they're not going to be able to do anything. There was questions as to why he didn't pick up a team like I forget who they were then, but Astralis was looking for someone to pick them up. I believe they were TSM at that time. You wonder, oh, well, why didn't he pick up TSM? They're a world contender. Why do you go with these guys? You got to trust what he was doing, and it's really worked out well for him. As we take a look at their rankings, they have just shot up in the rankings. They've performed consistently. They performed well. It all, you know, sort of hinges on Rush's performance. I feel like he is sort of the linchpin of this team. If he performs well, I think as a team they'll perform well as a whole. Same thing goes with Tarek. If he performs well, so will Optic Gaming. Now we look at Virtus Pro. Everyone knows who Virtus Pro is. They're not... Oh, Virtus Pro. Well, okay. Virtus... Let's try this again. There we go. Everyone knows Virtus Pro. The veterans of the scene. The team that's been together longer than probably any other team in Counter-Strike Global Offensive. I mean, you see all these teams that are making changes, and I can't remember a time where Virtus Pro made a team change. I really don't. They've got veterans from pre-Counter-Strike. I mean, a lot of these teams have veterans from pre-Counter-Strike Go, but Neo, legend in the scene. You know, this is just a solid team. They've always been consistently one of those top teams, consistently doing well. They've won a couple. I think they won. Which major did they win? One of the very first majors, and I think it might have been in Katowice in Poland, which was their home turf. And that was sort of like their emergence onto the Counter-Strike Go scene, where it was like, all right, here's Virtus Pro, they're here to stay, and they really have stayed since they won that first major. So you look at Virtus Pro, they've got that experience, they've got that star study. You don't look at this team and see a weak link, and that's not to say that you look at Optic and see a weak link, but I feel like Optic has to rely a little heavily on their star-studded players. They have to rely a little more heavily on Rush and Tarek, whereas any of these players can go off and they'll be okay. And I think that lends itself to Virtus Pro winning this matchup. As much as it pains me to say, as the North American, as the Optic fan, I think you got to go with Virtus Pro here. Yes, Optic has been on a tear recently, but I just think that you can't count out Virtus Pro in a situation like this. Now, going back to the best of ones, who knows? I mean, Optic has a very good shot of winning this matchup. They have a very good shot of winning the major. I mean, all of these teams do. Like I said, I can't repeat that enough, but I just think you gotta stick with Virtus Pro here, and we'll see what happens. Like I said, because best of ones are a thing. Oh, I don't know how to use Excel apparently. Because best of ones are a thing, anyone can win any game. And if I'm wrong, I would love it because, like I said, I'm an Optic fan. But I think I'm being realistic here when I say, you know, Virtus is going to win. But like I said, this is a complete 50-50 in my book. This is one of those matchups that I did not want to call because I have no clue. It's a toss-up in every sense of the word. Either team could win. It's just one of those things. We're going to move on to Navi and Mousesports. I want to say that this is another one of those games that it's like, okay, yeah, one team's going to win. But this is less, not a Spencer. This is less one-sided than the SK and Hellraisers matchup. Navi, of course, Edward, Guardian, Seized, Flamey, and Simple. They've been on a bit of a down stretch recently. I just don't think they've quite found that form yet, but Navi always manages to show up. They always manage to have good showings, and in a big tournament like a major, you got to expect that that trend is going to continue and that they're not just going to roll over. If we look at Mousesports, though, it's Chris J, Nico, Lowell, Speedy, and Dennis. Lowell actually in the qualifier was one of the top players. I think he topped a couple categories as far as kill death ratio, assists, damage per round. I think he topped a couple of those categories. So they are coming in here, you know, I think arguably as the underdogs in this matchup, but very, very likely to pull off the upset, right? I mean, if any of these players can go off, I think you are going to be in a good spot. Nico, obviously, is the guy that everyone looks at to sort of do that hard carry. The jokes are always made, you know, oh, Nico's back probably is killing him from all this carrying that he has to do. And that's true. The problem with Mousesports has consistently been Nico does well, Nico does well, Nico does well, and no one else does well, right? That's always been their problem. So I think if you can have a couple of these players step up, aside from Nico, I think you might be in good shape. You're looking at Chris J, right? The opera of the team. If Chris J can show up and perform well alongside Nico, alongside Lowell, and that no one has a down game, I think you're looking at a solid game here. I think you're looking at a solid matchup. Now, that goes into more of the map dependent, right? I mean, the ban pick system, I don't know how the maps are going to be picked. You know, if it's a solid map for either team, that could sway things. But I think you're looking at a solid matchup right now if Nico goes off. And Nico, I shouldn't say if Nico goes off. If Nico does his usual thing, and you get a couple of these guys that can step up, I think you're looking at a solid matchup. But I think if we're looking at prior performances, it's probably not going to happen to where enough of the frag power will come out of the remaining 4 players to keep up with Navi. So I think you've got to give Navi the advantage in this one. But I would love to see Mousesports do well. I would love to see them come out and get the victory against Navi. We'll have to see what happens, but I think at this point you got to say that Navi is gonna take the victory there. The next matchup of the day is going to be Liquid and Envy. Of course, North America versus France. We talked about France earlier. If we're going to take a look at them first, we talked about the French scene, how there's a little bit of turmoil going on right now. The French shuffle, everyone's been talking about it. Whether or not it's actually going to happen is remaining to be seen. But this team, of course, is comprised of Sixer, Kenny S, NBK, Apex, and Happy. Happy, the in-game leader. Sometimes we're not really sure. That's the thing. There's a lot going on with this team right now. A lot of weird things have been happening. They did just win. What was that? WESG. That's what it was. They just recently won that, like in the last. I think that was like last weekend or something. So, you know, they have those finishes that you want. Envy has won a major before. I think they've won 2 majors, maybe just one. They definitely won this one, obviously. DreamHack, Cluj-Napoca. I don't know. This is another one of those games where it's like you don't know which way to lean here, right? Because Envy has sort of minus the WSCG. They've had some turmoil going on where you're like, is Envy really going to be able to perform coming into this game? I mean, they have some Sixer. You know, how's he going to perform in this major, right? Is he gonna get to the big stage and flounder, or is he gonna really step up his game? Is Kenny S gonna be Kenny S of old, where he's hitting all these ridiculous shots? Is Apex gonna be able to get those ridiculous entry frags that he always is famous for getting, that change the round and get them into the bomb site? You just don't know. And then when you come over here and look at Liquid, I had to think about how to spell Liquid because I'm kind of dumb. Come over here and look at Liquid. Hiko, Pimp, Nitro, JDM, ELEAGUE. Had Simple for a while, and they got second at the last not the last major. Was it the last major? ESL One Cologne, 2016. Second there, but then they haven't really gotten any other massive finishes. I think it's all going to depend on how Liquid shows up. They're in wherever the majors... No. They're somewhere boot camping right now as a team. They're preparing for this major. They're getting all geared up for it. They're doing everything that they can to be the best team that they can be coming into the major. I think it's going to be Liquid to take this game. That could be an upset to some people, depending on how you look at it. But I think right now, with Envious's recent showings, you know, if Liquid can show up, if Pimp can do work, if Hiko can manage to, I mean, he hasn't had great showings. I mean, just consistently speaking, he has not had that great of showings. If the Op or JDM can show up, if ELEAGUE can get his kills, and everyone can sort of work as that cohesive unit, I think Liquid has a great shot to win this game. Envious could win, but I think I'm going to be picking Liquid here to take the victory in this matchup, and that's something that we'll have to see. And like I said, it comes down to maps, who shows up, who doesn't, stuff like that. So another 50-50 game, but I'm taking Liquid in that one. The next matchup is Astralis versus Godsent. So this is another one of those weird matchups, right? Because Astralis, former TSM, they had the semifinal curse. Astralis, there we go. They had the semifinal curse when they were TSM. They would get to the semifinals and just bottom out, tank out completely. Dropped Cajun B, added KRB. Glaive is in there as well. After they dropped Kerrigan, or maybe they dropped Kerrigan and picked up KRB and then Cajun B for Glaive. I forget how it happened, but then anyway, they dropped those two players, picked up these two. I think Astralis is looking good. They've certainly been able to show up recently and perform semi-well. They lost to Optic a couple times. They beat Optic a couple times. They beat other teams. ECS Season 2 Finals, they got first at, beating out Optic, Envious, SK, Dignitas, FaZe, Cloud9, Immortals. Solid victory there. Let's take another look here. Let's see. ELEAGUE Season 2. Let's do second there. Lost to Optic, SK, FaZe, Dignitas versus Pro, NIP. A lot of good teams in there as well. Another solid showing there. And then we're going to take a look here at Godsent, which is the other half of Fnatic when they broke up. So Godsent is comprised of Pronax, Flusha, Schneider, that's probably not how you say his name, JW and Lekro. JW, Flusha, and Pronax, of course, came from Fnatic. Not all at the same time, but JW and Flusha came over from Fnatic. They did have Crims, and then Crims swapped with Godsent and Fnatic. Crims is now back on Fnatic. I think you're looking at this matchup, and you got to think, who's going to show up in this matchup? And this is one of those matchups that's completely 50-50. Astralis, Godsent. I really have no idea who is going to win this matchup. This is the other one that I looked at it and I thought, wow, that has the potential to be an amazing game. I have no clue who's going to show up. You got to think that Astralis maybe has the upper hand here. Just with recent placings, they have more experience. They have that better team cohesiveness going forward. You got to think that maybe lends itself to Astralis winning, maybe having the upper hand, Godsent being the underdogs. But that's not to say that one team is going to for sure win. This one is extremely hard to call. But I think if I'm calling this one, I'm calling it for Astralis, just because of that experience. Pronax, Flusha, JW have, like I said, they were on Fnatic when Fnatic was the team to beat. They were the undisputed number one, never lost, won everything. They have that experience. I'm concerned about Lekro and however you want to pronounce his name. I'm going to say Schneider just because that's how I'm going to say it. You got to wonder about them, right? You got to wonder, how are they going to show up? Are they going to perform? You don't know. I'm going to take Astralis in this matchup simply because of the experience and because they have the longer team chemistry, time to build. So we're taking Astralis in this matchup. Final matchup of the day, FaZe versus Flipside. This is a weird matchup, right? Because if you look at FaZe, it's kind of a conglomerate of odd players all sort of mushed together. You've got Kerrigan I think he's Danish, yeah. Alu, Kyoshima, the French guy, AZ, and then Rain. You've got a weird combination of people. But they've managed to make it work. They have managed to not necessarily consistently get first place, but they've consistently performed well. they have performed well time after time. They've had some down tournaments where they haven't performed so well, but I think the addition of Kerrigan has really sort of boosted this team. They now have this solid in-game leader who's able to tell them where to go, what to buy, when to do things. He's able to anti-strat. I think it lends itself very well to FaZe winning this matchup. Now, we haven't even looked at Flipside, which is a disservice to them, because this isn't to say that they are a bad team. Markeloff, Blade, World Edit, Waylander, Electronic, they're not a bad team. Obviously, they're in the major. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, they're in the major because they got top 8 at the previous major, which automatically lets them be in the major, so they didn't have to qualify. But, and I could be wrong there. If I am wrong, let me know. But that's not to say that they're a bad team. Markeloff, Blade, World Edit, you know, those 3 guys specifically, you know, have had this experience, have been together. They've all, in their own ways, performed well. But I don't think that as a team they're going to be able to hang out and stay up there with FaZe. I think FaZe is just too good for them right now. I think, and they certainly have the ability to show up and show up well. They've proven it before. They've proven it in other tournaments. I just think that this one's going to go to FaZe simply because I don't think Flipside is strong enough. In a best of one, certainly anything could happen, but I think we're going to take FaZe over Flipside. All right, so there we have it. The winners and losers of day 1. We have North over Gambit, Fnatic over G2, SK over Hellraisers, VP over Optic, Navi over Mousesports, Liquid over Envy, Astralis over Godsent, and FaZe over Flipside. Like I said, these are all best of ones. Anything can happen in day 1. You know, any of these teams could come out and absolutely crush the other team. I'm not saying it's going to happen where Hellraisers is going to 16-0 SK, but it could happen, you know. This is the intriguing thing about this major is that I don't think there's a clear number 1 going into it. I don't think that there's a clear favorite to win this tournament. I really don't. And that's awesome because in years past, it seemed as if every team was battling for second. It was like, okay, SK is going to get first. Who's going to get second? Let's try and predict who's going to get second because SK is a lock to get first, or Fnatic's a lock to get first, or NiP's a lock to get first. Who's going to get second? Now it's like, well, you don't have a clear number 1. Sure, you could make an argument for SK. You could make an argument for Astralis. You could make an argument for even Optic. But is there that clear number 1? I certainly don't think so. And I think that's what's so awesome about this major and intriguing and what could potentially make it one of the best majors of all time. I mean, you look at this, you look at the teams here. Do you see any bad teams here? I certainly don't. In years past, you've looked and said, oh, well, that's a, excuse me, how did they get in? You know, how did they manage to qualify for this tournament? They're going to get run over. I don't see a team, wow. I don't see a team that you can say definitively is a bad team. I think it's going to be one of the best majors of all time. I think it certainly has the potential to be. And I just hope we see some great Counter-Strike being played. This is going to happen the 22nd to the 29th. The 22nd is day 1. If we look here, does it have a time? I think it starts at 8. I think that's when the broadcast start. Oh, start time 10 a.m. Eastern time. Okay, so it's starting at 10 a.m. And it's running from the 22nd to the 29th. So I think we have the potential to see some really great Counter-Strike being played. Like I said, this is going to start a series of videos on my channel where I'm going to be making these videos, breaking down the days, breaking down who wins, who loses. I'll probably make one after day 1, you know, showcasing how day 1 went, forecasting how day 2 might go, and sort of continue that on. I'm making it a challenge upon myself to create a video for every day. And I think that's a great challenge to make for myself. We'll see if I can stick to it. I really hope so. But, you know, we'll see what happens. I'm really looking forward to a lot of great Counter-Strike and just watching some of the best teams in the world battle it out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section below what your predictions are, what you think, what you want to see in future videos, what you want me to talk a little bit more about, talk a little bit less about. Just let me know, and we'll see how this goes. I hope you guys watch the major. I think it's going to be really great. It's on Twitch. When I get the official link, I'll let you guys know. I'm not really sure who's going to be broadcasting. I could probably figure it out, but I just haven't gotten that far yet. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you stay tuned for the rest of the videos that I'm going to be releasing. I will see you in those videos. I'm out. Peace.